Welcome back, DIVEBOMB IndyCar Podcast. And I know we said we'd do some storylines for this episode, but we sort of got the release for the thermal and realised it's all a bit complicated. So we figured the best way to do this is just give you a full rundown of what's going to happen the thermal weekend. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot to break down, and there's a lot to discuss, and knowing us, we'll probably do some predictions at the end, because that's what makes the life of this podcast, our awful predictions. So I'm sure we'll get some of them at the end as well. But as I said, this weekend, looking forward to IndyCar's £1 million, or $1 million, I should say, challenge. Too British on this podcast. The $1 million challenge held at the Thermal Club, which will host, I think, any sort of racing for the first ever time in a made-for-TV exhibition event, which is obviously got the desire to sort of grow the series, get some viewers in on primetime TV with a fast-paced action format. So we're sort of going to go over the format first of all, because there is a lot of different elements. There's three main segments. There's the qualifying, heat races, and the all-star race, a bit like NASCAR have their all-star race. In the first non-paying points event since 2008, when IndyCar went to Australia. So should we give some background to the Thermal Club first of all? Get a bit to know the venue. It's a very it's a bit of a weird one. It's like a private members club. It's a IndyCar. It's a world-class facility featuring an expansive 490-acre property known as the ultimate destination for driving-minded celebrities, corporate executives, and motorsport enthusiasts. I think it's quite a big facility, but it's very exclusive to get into. It's all a bit complicated. It's all a bit mafia vibe sort of place, but it's an exclusive place. It's the Thermal Club.
Yeah, as you said, I mean, they had a test there last year, but it wasn't an open test, so we didn't really get to see much. There's kind of a few clips of laps here and there, but yeah, we don't know how the racing's going to be, and yeah, it's all very exclusive. I mean, the backdrop is mountains, palm trees, mansions, and I think the fact that there's such a big prize as well kind of says all you need to know about the event and where it's going to be hosted. It's a $1.756 million complete package of money that's being given out, which is the biggest that isn't from the Indy 500. So it's pretty huge. I mean, it's called the $1 million challenge because it was initially supposed to be split between the team and driver and a Thermal Club member that they were partnered with, which will be determined at a draw, which takes place on Thursday before the first track action on the Friday. So it's all very unusual. Now there's not going to be half of the prize going to a Thermal member. It would just be the $500,000. I've done it as well now, Dan. Going to just the team and driver. So yeah, it's all very bizarre, and we'll do our very best to unpick it. I think we might miss some. We might miss some things. But I'll tell you one thing that I found interesting is what these Thermal members that are going to be partnered with the teams, the sort of perks they get. They'll get to do Q&As with the team that they're immersed with, team meetings. They'll get to use team gear, and then they also get some racecraft instruction, which is interesting.
I think it'd be quite interesting. Will one of the drivers be better than the other ones? Obviously, like, you probably want the names like Alex Palou or Scott Dixon, but I wonder if there's a driver who's going to be really fun. Like Stingray Rob, I reckon it'd be absolutely awesome. He'll probably let you do everything apart from drive the car. But there might be some drivers, I'm not going to name names, who might be a bit more reserved and a bit hesitant to, like, these Thermal members could be spies. They could be giving out information to other teams. Who knows that? I don't know, Roger Penske's got a secret membership at the club and is going to be going to the Ganassi meetings. It could all be very secretive, this.
I'm sure they'd have them sign some sort of NDA or something before they go in, so they can't do that.
That ruins the fun of it, I think.
It did cross my mind because Don Cusick is one of the members, and obviously Cusick Motorsports are partnered with Dreyer and Reinbold Racing for the Indy 500. So what if he's immersed with Team Penske and all of a sudden he's finding out inside information from Penske? I don't know. It's all very very interesting. There's a lot of little intricacies to kind of delve into, and yeah, as I mentioned, this draw that happens on Thursday will not only pair drivers and teams with the Thermal member, it will also split the field into two groups for the qualifying and heat races that are going to happen. So that's kind of where the weekend gets started, is this draw party on Thursday. It's all a very party exclusive, very interesting thing.
The draw's quite fun though, because obviously in qualifying we're used to having it done by practice order, so you don't really have many of the big guns next to each other. This is just a free for all. So all we know, you get the McLarens, the Ganassis, and the Penske's all in one group, and then get the Foyts, the Hunkosses, and that sort of guys in the other group. So I mean, I doubt that's going to happen, but there's a chance we could get the most ridiculously unbalanced heat races of all time. It's quite exciting. I mean, realistically, we're probably going to get about a split anyway, but theoretically, it could be quite funny.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. And we start the weekend with a lot of track time as well, don't we? There's a sort of, I think it's 9 hours of testing, is it, across Friday and Saturday? I think there's
something like that.
On Friday, I think there's a 2 hour and 3 hour test session. Then Saturday, there's another couple of 2 hour sessions. So we'll kind of get familiar with the track, I feel, and then the drivers will also obviously be able to kind of get up to speed as well, because not everyone tested there last year. Obviously, you've got rookies and new drivers coming in this year. You look at the likes of Nolan Siegel, who will be really benefited, you imagine, from this testing time as he steps into Dale Coyne in the number 18 car. Callum Ilott, likewise, he didn't have much testing time in McLaren ahead of St. Pete, so that'll be quite important for them, I think. So the guys who've only really had one outing, or Siegel, who's only ever had one outing in an IndyCar full stop, and Ilott one outing in a McLaren car, then a race, of course.
So let's go on to, I guess, the qualifying format, because as you said, we've got some testing on Friday and Saturday. We have some testing, so it's basically a fancy version of practice, but just there's a lot more of it. So that happened to start us off, and then, as we said, we've got the random draw to divide the field on the Thursday, and then on Saturday, we at 8 p.m. Eastern, which is what, 4 p.m. local, 5 p.m. local, something like that, late afternoon.
I think the local time to thermal is Pacific, isn't it? So I think that's 3 hour difference from Eastern time.
5 p.m. and there's a 12-minute qualifying session in each group to decide the lineup for the heat races the next day. Now there's some little tweaks. The first was the red flag rule. Timing of session obviously begins at the green flag. I think that's slightly different. It's usually done on whoever crosses the line first, so I think that's slightly different. So its timing begins the declaration of the green flag, with timing stopping at the first red flag for each group, but not subsequent red flags. The main difference is we're going to get push to pass in the qualifying session. So drivers have up to 40 seconds of push to pass for the entire session, which is quite interesting, because do you use 30 seconds in one lap and just absolutely go for it? Or do you keep it a bit reserved, have 5 each lap and build up to it? It's quite an interesting sort of strategy concept in there.
Yeah, I mean, qualifying is obviously going to be fascinating because it sets the grids for the 2 heat races, depending on the groups. And I think it's only one set of tyres as well for each team, which is interesting. That's not something you usually see. Obviously, like in the latter sessions of a normal qualifying session, you'd get them starting on the primaries, then moving to the alternate tyres. I don't actually think it's been made clear whether there are primaries or alternates, or whether it is just one set of tyres that have been brought. So we'll have to see that. I would imagine it'll be primaries and alternates, but maybe not. I don't know. I don't know whether the teams will have that tyre choice or not. That's not particularly clear. But yeah, as you mentioned earlier, Dan, it's going to be interesting to see how the draw balances out these qualifying and heat groups, because that's going to be a crucial part of the weekend, obviously, and could allow opportunities for some teams if some of the quote-unquote smaller teams get a more favourable draw, for instance. But yeah, I guess with the likes of one tyre set, push to pass in qualifying, it's quite a good time to experiment things as well while having this sort of made-for-TV exhibition event. So yeah, we'll have to see. Qualifying is probably the least confusing part of the weekend.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's the most calm down before we start sort of the storm on Sunday. Let's move on to the heat races. And apparently, it's the first time since Iowa 2013 that they've had heat races. Obviously, they have one 14-car race and one 13-car race. So this is where it gets a bit confusing. Each heat race will consist of 10 laps or be timed at 20 minutes. Laps under full course yellow will not count, however the race clock will continue. A lap is deemed complete when the leader crosses the start-finish line. The car's position on track will be determined by the last timeline crossed on track at the moment of the full course yellow condition. That's the first bit, and then a new set of Firestone Firehawk tyres will be allotted for the heat races. Pit stops for emergency service only will be allowed. Tyres used during qualifying will be the only approved replacement tyre and must be approved by IndyCar. A car making an adjustment not deemed emergency in nature will be disqualified. As in qualifying, cars will receive 40 seconds of push to pass in each race. Break that one down. bit more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing to say is hopefully the racing will be good. As I said, we don't really know what sort of racing this track will be conducive to necessarily, because it's never hosted anything of the like, really. It's just been track days for all of your kind of celebrities and executives and whoever are members here at the Thermal Club. So that's one thing. But yeah, it's going to be a sort of sprint from start to finish, you would hope, anyway, with no fuel saving, no tyre saving, because it's going to be 20 minutes at the most, the race. It's 10 laps of 20 minutes, whichever comes first. And yeah, obviously then there's going to be quite a battle to get into the top six, because if you don't get into the top six, that's your weekend over. And I think again it kind of harks back to there's kind of this experimentation element to it, with obviously the full course yellow laps not counting, for instance. I think it's a pretty good quirk, just in case we did happen to get chaos and some sort of pile up or repeated cautions. At least it kind of means we can have a few more racing laps, although I imagine that will still have to be within the 20 minutes.
It is, which is what I find confusing, because last year's top testing time, I think, was 1 minute 38 seconds. So they'll be lapping at 141s, 142s. If that's a 10 lap race, that's what you're sort of looking at 17, 18 minutes. So really, you can sort of afford like one lap under caution for that rule to really be useful. Yeah,
that's quite a good point, actually. It does kind of negate that rule actually being at all impactful. But yeah, we'll see there. I mean, the whole not stopping, that means that cars won't be able to. I think this rule also applies in the main races, which we'll come on to. But that means that cars won't be able to, say, come in, put a fresh set of tyres on, gamble on a caution, and hope that they can then make their way through the field, because if it's not an emergency stop, they'll get disqualified.
Bit excessive, I think.
So I guess it's to try and stop any of those sort of strategy games if you're at the back of the field. So yeah, again, experimentation, concept's fine, and it is going to be the sort of thing that will hopefully be good for TV, because it will just be racing hard and kind of without any management, you would hope anyway, unless there is some excessive tyre wear or something.
Yeah, I think the caution thing is quite good, first of all. Obviously, as we sort of mentioned, it's not going to be too significant, but I think it's a nice little quirk where we aren't taking off race laps. And my understanding is any lap it gets called on, that lap doesn't count. So it's called halfway through a lap, that lap doesn't count, but don't quote me on that. Again, cool feature. I'm not sure how effective it's going to be, but I mean, the thing about the thermal is it's got quite a lot of runoff. It's quite open as a facility, so hopefully we won't really be getting many cautions, because it should hopefully be quite easy to retrieve cars. So again, we don't want cautions. I mean, the whole point of this is close racing. And then your pit stop thing is absolutely fine. Push to pass, obviously 40 seconds. If you work out, you usually get 200 seconds in a race, I guess, which is theoretically over 5 times the length of 20 minutes. So I guess that's a bit more fun. So yeah, again, it's made for racing. It should be quite good. Obviously, the All-Star race is the really, really confusing one, but this should be good thing. I think the heat race has got some good features to them.
Yeah, I feel like the pit stop one, I feel like the disqualified bit is what you said, it's a bit too far, but kind of it eliminates, like you said, the people kind of trying to go for the fast lap and stuff like that. And I think it'll just make it so that everyone's on the same like level field, like playing level field as well, even though you would be like behind. But I don't know, I feel like it just cause just really good racing. Like you said, there's no one playing any kind of like management, no one playing any kind of like strategy really. It's just everyone going for it, and then like hope that everyone kind of makes it to the end, and yeah.
And I think it's quite good from IndyCar that they have made this weekend into kind of a test as well as this made for TV exhibition event, because the 15 teams that don't make it to the end game, let's say to the final, sort of the final as it's called, I think, I don't know what the
All-Star race.
The All-Star race, there we go. That still getting familiar. So at least like the weekend has value to every single team. It's not like, because initially you could think that some teams would see it as, well, it's a bit gimmicky, and what's the point if we're clearly not going to be in the... Well, actually, I'll just break down the prize money that goes to each team, actually, because if you are 6th or lower, you just get $23,000, regardless of whether you finish 6th or whether you finish 27th, I think is my understanding of it. Second place, obviously the winner gets 500,000. The second place gets 350,000. Third, 250,000. Fourth, 100,000. Fifth, 50,000. So if you're not finishing inside the top 5, it is kind of pointless. So I think it's good that they've got that value to the weekend as a test session as well. Especially because it means that, if teams are knocked out in the heats, which is going to happen to obviously over half of the field, then it's not like it's a disaster and a waste of a weekend, which I think without the test, some teams may have perceived the event as.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of testing going on. The day of recording, they've been testing Alabama, amongst others. So don't know who was on track. I know Award was on there. Don't know if you know anyone else.
I have got a list.
I think it's quite a big test.
Courtesy of a tweet from Mike Hull, who is a Chip Ganassi Racing. I don't know, I think he might be a strategist. He's quite high up at Chip Ganassi Racing. You've got Kiffin Simpson, Pato Award, Callum Ilott, so that's more track time for Callum Ilott. Alexander Rossi, Linus Lundqvist, Scott Dixon, Alex Palou, Marcus Armstrong, Santino Ferrucci, Graham Rahal, Pietro Fittipaldi, Stingray Robb, Christian Lundgaard, Felix Rosenqvist, and Tom Blomqvist. So
there we are. So that's more testing. As you said, it gives people sort of incentive to go. It's 9 hours of testing, so there is quite a lot for teams to get through. So obviously, I think it's not a traditional venue. I think Colton Herta said last year there's 7 first-gear corners, which is absolutely insane because there's not that many on the calendar at all, and it's a really open road course, but you sort of appreciate there's not really been any grip laid there or that sort of thing. So hopefully throughout the weekend, the track should sort of speed up at that, because I don't think any racing of any sort has actually ever been held there as used as a facility. So hopefully as the grip ramps up and that sort of thing, the track will get faster. But I think Herta said last year it just was quite a slow track. Let's go to the All-Star races, as what they call it. The Thermal Club $1 million challenge. The top 6 advancing cars from each heat race will make up the 12-car field for the Thermal Club $1 million challenge. The pole position and odd number starting positions are determined by the heat race winner with the fastest time from qualifications occupying the pole, and the remainder of that heat race line up in positions 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. The final will consist of 20 laps divided into 2 10-lap sprints with a 10-minute half-time break following the completion of lap 10, which is certainly a new one. I wonder if we'll get like some entertainment like the Super Bowl.
Well, yeah, because it's a 10-minute break where they can, I think it says they can attend to the drivers.
Yeah, they can add fuel and stuff.
During the break, all cars will return to their pit boxes and only allowed to add renewable race fuel, adjust front and rear wing angles and wickers, adjust tyre pressure, and attend to the driver. So that 10 minutes, I'm hoping they get someone like Pitbull out to hype up the 50 Thermal Club members who are going to be there or something like that. They need to really make the most of this.
Well, again, they're not going to be allowed to change tyres, which is a quick kind of follows on from the heat races. So over what is obviously a longer race, 20 laps in length. 20 laps in length, 10 laps either side of the of the break. I guess you've just got to hope the tyre wear is not too aggressive, so it does sort of remain as this sprint race kind of feel. With $500,000 on the line, I would hope that teams are just going to go for it. Like, especially for some of the smaller teams, it's a massive amount of money. So. Yeah, I mean, it is all gimmicky. It's at the end of the day, it is made for TV though, and you've got to hope that this sort of shorter lengths, the kind of the heat races, and then like there's a lot of racing, there's a lot of track action. You've just got to hope that is conducive to quite an entertaining product, which does kind of bring in viewers. I know it's been quite well advertised. I think they've been speaking about it quite a bit. So yeah, let's see. It could be a massive success. It could be a complete failure, but I think it's worth a try.
Yeah, I mean, I think the half-time format really does sort of stand out as well. It's like a mandatory red flag sort of thing. So there could be a poor leader 7 seconds in front of everyone else, cruising their way to 500k. Then they know it's going to happen, but a mandatory red flag gets pulled out, and they've just lost their 7 seconds and can lead it on the next start. So I guess it's obviously there to keep racing the entire time, which is the whole point of the show. So absolutely fine with it, because where it's gimmicky and non-championship, you might as well just make it really gimmicky. You might as well just take the mix. You might as well just add flying cars and add Mario Shell bananas amid the track to make
I completely agree. I completely agree with everything you just said there. Just go all out. Just go all out.
Yeah. So, and again, this is exactly what they've done with 2 sprint races and make it up to 20 laps. And fair enough, it makes it fun. All rules from the heat races will apply, except a time limit shall not apply, which I think is quite good. 40 seconds of push to pass will be reset after the half-time break, so you get 80 seconds of push to pass in a 20-lap race, which is pretty insane. During the second 10-lap segment, should a full course yellow occur, the car's actual position on track will determine the restart lineup. Tyres used during the heat race will be the replacement tyre for the final if needed, and approved by IndyCar. Very mundane sort of information there, but push to pass is obviously the important one. Obviously, no time limit makes it more fun. I do laps count under caution in the All-Star race? I think.
Well, if they're doing it from all the rules from the heat race, then
presumably
probably.
so. So that's quite good then.
Yep. Yeah. No, I've got it written here that yes, full course yellow laps don't count. So it kind of, that rule has more of a purpose in the race than it does in the heat race. I guess they've just added it to the heat race just to make the rule books easier and more consistent.
Yeah, I guess they're probably on a tight schedule as well, so they just want to get it done with. But I like the no time limit. I think it means, you'd hope we wouldn't have an absolute wreck fest with 12 cars, but in the odd scenario we do, it means we're not wasting the entire race behind a caution. So
it's going to be weird having just 12 cars on track. And I mean, hooray for whoever gets there and their sponsors. Their sponsors will be delighted because they will get a lot more attention than they would if they are fighting for 17th in a regular race, won't they? So yeah, I mean, it's pretty big for sponsors, especially if they do kind of rake in viewership. I guess the TV ratings are going to be really fascinating when they come out next week.
Yeah, and it is big for the series because, as we said, they've made it as gimmicky as possible, as entertaining as possible, with the goal of bringing in these viewers as some prime time NBC. It couldn't be better, but, obviously we don't live in the States. We don't really have a grasp of how they've advertised it or how much IndyCar have pushed it, but it's big for the series. This could bring in thousands of viewers very easily. I mean, obviously they'll soon realise that it's not quite NASCAR-styled gimmickies, this is a bit like NASCAR, isn't it, with heats and stages, but obviously maybe all we need is over. Well, no, it is like overtime as well because it's just an infinite ending. So a bit like NASCAR, this, but obviously they'll soon realise that it's not the full reality of IndyCar. But at the end of the day, it's there to get viewers to watch the racing, and the racing every other week is good enough, I think, for people to stay engaged. So it's important. Again, we don't really know how the TV side of it works, but primetime TV on NBC, it's a big opportunity to get a lot of fans in. Hopefully, we all really hope it works.
I think if they've advertised it right, then they'll get loads of fans in. I think just from being in like the UK, I feel like I've seen quite a bit of advertising, so I feel like I'd hope that they'd also done quite a lot. I don't know if that's just because I've seen it like on social media and stuff like that, but you'd hope that they would have pushed it and they would get just a lot more fans in. And I think kind of the big thing that I get them in is just the $1 million like challenge. I feel like that just the money aspect would just draw people in. I feel like it'd draw me in if I didn't know about it. This is something that I saw. So I think it just brings loads of fans in.
Yeah, I really hope that drivers do just go for it, because maybe those that sometimes feel the pressure of the championship, they can just thrive under not worrying, oh, if I do have an incident, then it's not going to take a big haul of points away from me, for instance, or not worrying about focusing on getting in the leaders circle, for instance, because at the end of the day, the teams that are usually fixating on getting in the leaders circle, they're probably the ones that should just go for it the most to try and get the big prize, because I don't know what the exact leader circle fund is, but I think it's around $1 million. So
yeah, just short 910K, I think.
So this is like a prize on the line that some of the smaller teams just spend a whole season striving to get towards. So yeah, it's a lot of money on the line, and they don't have to protect points. So I'm hoping it'll just be drivers going gung ho, and as long as they don't overstep the mark and take too many risks to the extent that it does become some sort of wreck fest. But yeah, I think people will still want to protect their equipment, but it's 4 weeks until the next race in Long Beach. So I expect good racing, providing the track does really allow for it. I think it was quite a physical track. I think a lot of the drivers commented on being quite physical after the test last year. So yeah, I mean, the format will take getting used to. It's very unique, and this sort of non-championship race isn't common, and it's not something that a lot of these drivers will have kind of done before. And yeah, it's very made for TV, and there's not many fans in it. It's very expensive. It's very exclusive, but I guess that's just to try and get as many people to watch on TV as possible, part of it. And also the fact that the Thermal Club just can't house that many spectators. And I guess they want to keep it as exclusive as the facility is, really. But yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. And
yeah, I'm
excited to see how it pans out.
And as you sort of said, 500k for the smaller teams is massive. But for someone like Joseph Newgarden, Pato O'Ward, Alex Palou, yes, it's still a lot of money, but it's not as significant as a percentage. We've had Pato O'Ward's now on $4.5 million a year in a few years' time, so it's not as significant. So on the flip side, if you're a big team, if you're a Penske, if you're a McLaren, if you're a Ganassi, do you want to risk crashing out, losing some parts, risking a chassis? Will they really go all out for it? But if you're someone, let's say, Meyer Shank Racing or Hunkos or Coin, why not go for it? What have you got to lose? You've got 500k on the line, and this is a good opportunity to get your name out there. It makes you look like a really attractive team. So I'm hoping they just sort of go for it. Big teams don't play it as significantly. I mean, I'm sure they will, but it's all gloves are off, because it's not like, again, if you're a top driver who would normally be chasing a championship, it doesn't matter if you crash out. I mean, you haven't lost much. You've lost a share of prize money, but it's not the end of the world. I'm sure there's other opportunities to get it back. So, yeah, I'm hoping it's just going to be really fast-paced, really action-packed, and hopefully we just get a few surprises, I think, is the main thing.
Yeah, I think there is a prospect of there being a lot of storylines, especially if it is a case of some of the smaller teams almost going for it more than some of the major teams who it isn't quite as significant to, who do care more just about the championship and won't take their foot off the gas this weekend, but maybe wanting to protect equipment or what have you, as you suggested. But yeah, I really hope it just does attract viewers that maybe are motorsport fans, maybe aren't motorsport fans, that are just like this sort of sporting entertainment. And as manufactured as it is, I can't say I really have any objections, and I don't think the drivers can really have many objections either. It's credit to the series for trying something, and if it goes wrong, so be it. I don't think they'll look too stupid, because it's you may as well just give it a go, and I can't see it being a catastrophe really, unless the racing is just not particularly good. But it's something to fill the gap at the end of the day. Otherwise, it would have been a 6-week break, which would have been a long, long time. Would have rather a points race, but not begrudging this event, really. It's something for us to really feast on, and to really kind of hopefully bring the spotlight to IndyCar.
Yeah, I don't think any of us could have survived like 6 weeks. It'd feel like a mini kind of winter break again, even though we've just started the season.
Mid-seasoning.
Mid-season. Not off-seasoning, mid-seasoning. But I think kind of coming to the argument of if the larger teams will maybe not try as hard because it doesn't feel like that much of an incentive. I feel like the drivers will care a lot, just in the sense of they're all competitive. They're in a really competitive sport. Like, there's no way that they're going to kind of come into this and not give it their all. Like, it may not seem like a big deal in terms of like championship, but I think at the end of the day, it's a race. It's a smaller race, but there's still like a lot on the line, considering the fact that if you don't kind of make it through the heat races, you aren't going to be in the final race. And I don't think any of the drivers kind of want to not be there. I think they're just going to give it their all, and the competitiveness will kind of just take over.
I think one other thing, the track layout. I guess we've all had a look at it. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it seems like a lot of high-speed corners, some flowing sections. I think Hurst said, as I mentioned, there's 7 first-gear corners. Overtaking-wise, it looks like there's one long straight and potentially an overtaking opportunity on the main straight as well. But it's an interesting layout. I mean, I'm not really sure how it's going to be for racing. I think they said last year it might be quite hard to follow, where it's low speed and there's not a lot of grip. But I guess time will tell on that one.
Is it the full circuit layout?
No, so it's the
not the funky bit at the top.
It's the Twin Palms layout where it sort of cuts off.
Yeah, so you don't have the funky bit at the sort of the top of the track, Matt.
No. So it's the Twin Palms layout, which is sort of cuts that bit off.
I mean, I need to have another look at as many onboards as I can, really, but it did look reasonably wide in some areas. I think one issue last year was that when drivers went off track, it was really, really dusty and quite sandy, and there was a lot of just material kind of being brought onto the track if drivers went off. I kind of recall that being an issue, considering
they never use it.
I kind of recall that being an issue, so I don't know whether that will play into it.
You'd hope that the 9 hours of testing or whatever should sort of solve a lack of rubber and that sort of thing. You'd hope, maybe. But again, we don't really know, but hopefully that's going to be helpful towards that.
Yeah, I'm actually even looking forward to the test, to be honest. I'm just looking forward to having all of this nice scenery to marvel at. Oh, and by the way, the timings with it also clashing with being an F1 weekend are quite spectacular in the UK. Because I think there's some days it kind of goes beyond midnight, doesn't it? And then you have the Aussie GP that's early morning, so might be some interesting sleep schedules for us UK folk this weekend.
I think it says here. So qualifying Group 1 is at midnight our time, which is going to be fun. So that's Sunday morning. Obviously, the race is 5 a.m. something like that.
Yeah, it's 4 a.m. the Australian Grand Prix.
Wow.
UK
God.
time.
Sounds like an all-nighter to me, I reckon.
It does. I think it's going to be daytime sleeping.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll all make it to Monday.
I have to adjust my clock to Pacific time.
Yeah, it's going to be a weird one. I mean, yeah, that's going to be a difficult weekend. But yes, we sort of got over the format, the uniqueness, and as we sort of said, we're all looking forward to the event. Now, the Thermal Club, we know it's exclusive. How exclusive do we think we're talking? So there's 3 different elements to it. There is there's a monthly membership fee, there's an initiation fee, and this is so casual. And the cost of purchasing a lot and building a 30,000 square foot home within 5 years of joining. So if you join the Thermal Club, you've got to build a house worth quite a lot of money, which I think's my favourite quirk there.
It's just mind-boggling. The whole thing is just crazy.
A crazy place. I mean, listen to this. The grounds of the Oasis include 48 guest casitas. I don't know what that is.
The Oasis says a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah. A casita is a small house at other building, apparently. 3 restaurants, a new 1.1 mile go-kart track, and a 70-car storage facility for members' race cars with apparently there's like LMP2s inside there. One of the club's wealthiest members houses his own 40-car Ferrari collection, and the grounds feature all the gas pumps, car washers, detailing equipment, and full-time mechanics and driving instructors. And there's trusted car salesmen on site to ensure when they sell their cars, they get the best possible price. It's an absolutely crazy place.
It's like a different world, isn't it? I mean, I'm just looking forward to seeing all of the houses around the the track. I mean, I've seen some of them and quite spectacular. I mean, they've all got views over the track, and maybe people can charge. Well, I was going to say maybe people can charge fans to come and watch from their houses, but I'm not sure they.
Would it be against the rules?
I don't know where I read
really need that money.
Let me find where I read this
True.
because
They might just rent it out, but then what? I can't speak. But then again, would they allow loads of people in there? Would they want them?
For the open test, the track owners permitted each member to invite up to 20 guests on the ground for Thursday and Friday, from which each member can then rotate through 6 paddock passes for up and close personal access to the IndyCar world. And I quote: "One guy said he's going to have a head chef, 2 sous chefs, 2 bartenders, cleaning people and servers." It's
unbelievable,
crazy. It's an absolutely crazy place. I mean, I'm really not quite sure what to think.
I mean, we have a lot of there's a lot of coverage as well. The 9 hours of testing are all on TV. I think it's on Peacock over in the US, and I assume it will be available on like IndyCar Live. I don't know. I think Sky must be doing it over here.
Yeah.
So that's going to be something. I mean, there's going to be a lot of fun commentary discussion, I would imagine. We'll probably find out a lot of new quirks about the Thermal Club.
Yeah. So, yeah, back to monthly memberships. Have a guess at let's have a guess at the initiation fee.
Okay. I'm trying to think.
I don't even know the ballpark that I'm looking in here. It's going to be like crazy amounts.
I feel like I'm looking too low.
Fee.
So there's a monthly fee, but we'll start off the initiation fee.
So that's just
to get in.
Get in.
Maybe like maybe 500k, or is that too low, too high?
I'm going to go for 50k, 50,000.
Oh, I'm going way too high.
It's between you two.
Okay.
I'll let you have a second guess and see who.
Go on, Ellie.
Who is it closer to?
Oh, I can't reveal that.
Maybe I'll go down to. Once again, I don't really know what to think. Maybe like 200k then. Just really, I don't know.
I'm gonna go for 68k.
$175,000. So yeah, it's a lot. I believe they can get 70% of that refunded if they leave the Thermal Club. So
Wow,
only
I am quite a lot.
That is a lot of money.
You've got a monthly membership which has doubled over the last 5 years. Any guesses to what that is?
I'm gonna guess it's lower than
the
thingy.
Maybe I'll go for 120,000
a month.
A month?
I don't know.
No, that's a bit optimistic.
Okay. I don't know how ludicrous we're going here.
No, it's not. It's not as ludicrous as that. So it's a lot less than that.
Okay, Ellie, go through one out there, and then I'll revise my guess.
Maybe like 75k. Is that too high? I don't know what's
way too high.
Okay.
So it was 1,200. Now it's doubled to 2,400 a month. So,
okay, right. Okay, so yeah, I don't think anyone's quite that rich, to be fair.
Yeah, probably an American's monthly wage for someone working full time. So that's gone very quickly. And then the cost of building the house is.
Oh, this will be mad.
Well, considering they want like a sous chef, these butlers and all
well,
that.
That's only one guy, to be fair. So
this is what they pay to build their house.
This is the approximate value of building a house, yeah.
And given,
or you can buy one.
Okay, I'm gonna go. I think this is gonna be quite ridiculous because these are like proper mansions. I've seen some of these houses. I'm gonna go for 2.5 million.
Oh, I don't even know how much a house would cost to build. Well, maybe I just go like 1 million.
So maybe? It's 2.3 million to buy a ready spec-made villa off-track property, or 3.3 million for a trackside location. The approximate cost of building a house or a villa is $5 million.
What? What?
So
Unbelievable.
much.
So yes, long story short, the Thermal Club is very exclusive. I mean, I guess they pretty much get 24/7 access to the track, and you must have to properly love motorsport.
I
But
mean,
long-
if they
You'd
have
hope so.
LMP2 cars in situ there, I mean,
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. Let's stay on LMP2 cars actually. 12 Hours of Sebring, episode 2 of the DIVEBOMB IndyCar Podcast. And we had some IndyCar winners at Sebring. We had 2. Colton Herta won the GTP cars alongside Louis Delatraz and
one of the
Delatraz won
Taylors.
it. Yes, one of the Taylors. I will find out for you. It was Jordan. And then Carl Kirkwood won the GTD Pro class alongside ex-IndyCar driver Jack Hawksworth and Ben Barnacote. So two winners
Brits.
there. 2 Brits. Yeah, so IndyCar success. Just so you know, everyone else came. Delatraz had a battle with about 5 minutes left to win the race. He overtook ex-IndyCar driver Sebastian Bourdais, podcast favourite, who was sharing a car with Scott Dixon. So they came within a second of winning with a thrilling battle at the end. The Porsche Penske's came third. The same New Gardens crew wasn't racing this time, but the rest of them finished third. And in other names, Romain Grosjean finished 7th in Lamborghini's debut in the GTP class.
Okay, I just want to say something on Grosjean as well. He put in quite an impressive fight actually, because there was one stage where he was trying really hard to stay on the lead lap. I think he was being caught by the leader, and he managed to fend off the leader for quite a while. And pretty impressive performance. I don't know whether it might be his hypercar debut. I know it's the first IMSA outing for this Lamborghini LMDH effort. Don't know whether Grosjean's ever driven in the top class before. So
I don't think so, no.
see, he's been with the Iron Lynx team, but in GTD. So yeah,
Yep.
impressive from Grosjean. Pretty decent first outing.
Yep. And in the LMP2 class, the winners of the Era Motorsport, who Rasmussen won with in Daytona. He wasn't there. I mean, Colin Zilich was still there, who continues to impress. He's one of 2 17-year-olds to win in Daytona and Sebring. Do we know the other one?
I
Yeah,
wouldn't
class
know.
win, I must say. I mean, you know the name Pato Award. Was 17 when he won that. Both him and Colton Herta have 2 Daytona victories and 1 Sebring victory. And there you are. Hunter McElroy came second in class. He made quite a thrilling overtake midway through the race. So check it out if you haven't watched it already.
Yeah, it was a bit like Blomqvist's at Daytona.
Yeah.
Just split GT traffic and went down the inside. It was very impressive.
Colin Braun finished 9th. He obviously is back this weekend. Whether we'll see him in the future or not, we don't know. But he finished 9th alongside Toby Sowry and George Kurtz.
Yeah, it was actually a pretty good day for Brown. Brown. I think we're supposed to say Brown.
Braun's easier, British.
Yeah. But I think he was actually going for second in the closing stages and spun. So it could have been a much better day for him, to be fair.
Blomqvist was alongside Jack Aitken, Pipo Derani. Pipo Derani had quite a scary accident, so thank goodness he walked away from it all right. But his day was ended early when they were leading the race. Really bad accident, so it was great that Pipo Derani was fine. Sort of other ex-IndyCar names, Catherine Legg, she got hit by a Porsche Penske, which put the end to her day. James Hinchcliffe was back in the FAF Motorsports. They were having another nightmare day. I don't know. I didn't watch the whole film, but I had quite a few problems off the top of my head. You might know more than me, Archie, in this one.
Yeah, no. So I'll just start with commenting on that Durrani accident. I mean, I described it as a seismic shunt, and oh my word, it was one of the biggest crashes I have seen in a long time. I mean, it was only a little bit of contact with the GT car, but he hurtled into the tyre barriers and kind of semi-vaulted them, and then ended up landing upside down on the tyres. But I mean, massive credit to the safety, and thankfully he didn't get over the tyre barriers because it was quite a nearby fan area. But I think that limited Blomqvist only to 1 outing, actually. So that was a bit of a shame. And yes, the number 9 Faf McLaren, they did not have a great Daytona. They've switched from Porsche to McLaren over the off-season. Daytona was a bit rocky. They had a few issues, and unfortunately, they had, not so many car issues. I think think Hinch had said on off track that they'd put in quite a lot of work since Daytona, but not so many car issues, more just pretty bad luck. They got, I think, rear-ended at one point. At the very start, they got a little bit of damage after a car came spinning across the track. So, yeah, that wasn't great. There were a few tales of woe, really. I mean, Leg, I think Leg was actually running fifth. That was an effort with Tatiana Calderon as well, another kind of IndyCar linked name. And then actually the fifth place finisher in GTD was Devlin DiFrancesco's 78 Ford Lamborghini, Forte. That's what it is. But someone reported that actually, and I apologize, I can't actually remember who said this or where I saw it, but someone tweeted that they'd spoken to DiFrancesco on the St. Pete grid, and he's supposedly looking at IndyCar for 2025. So we'll see what comes from that. But yeah, I mean, it was quite a decent 12-hour race. I really, really enjoyed the sort of end of it, and yeah, IndyCar's success. I thought Herta did really well. He was in the thick of some pretty intense lead battles. Got his, I believe, first overall victory in IMSA, and then Kirkwood. I mean, he's getting used to winning these endurance events with the Vassar Sullivan Lexus team. They are an incredibly well-oiled operation, and they probably would have won in Daytona if they weren't hit and crashed out of the race early through no fault of their own back in January. So yeah, some more success heading into the remainder of the IndyCar season.
Let's go back to St. Pete very quickly, because we've got to touch on the split practice format we mentioned in our season preview. So I just have some quotes here from drivers and team principals, if that gives a bit more context. So Pietro Fittipaldi, I think it was good because for me, especially whilst learning the track, there was less of the traffic and people on outlap slowing me down. Gavin Ward, our McLaren team principal, I applaud us for trying something. I think it's only worth doing in Detroit. What we suggested here was to split into two groups and run two separate sessions. I think this was overcomplicated. Ricardo Juncos, team principal at Juncos, obviously. I don't like it much. I think it's a lot of stress. Right now with the red flag, it hurts us with Canapino. We didn't get a lot of time. We actually didn't use the green, so our lap time is pretty massively down. That's the only chance for him before qualifying, so it screwed the whole thing. So pretty mixed opinions. Our opinions.
I think Gavin Ward's shout of, and I think Newgarden said this, and I don't think it's an isolated take from those two either, that it could work in Detroit, where practice, let's be frank, last year was an absolute shambles. There were about 8 red flags in the first practice session. No one could get clean laps because it's such a narrow track. I just think the 10-minute segments are a little bit problematic. They're a bit short. I think minor issues for an individual, or say multiple red flags. Obviously, the clock stops with the first red flag, but not for the following. It just means there's not really any meaningful running. A lot of drivers are just hurt by that. And I think the first of the 10-minute segments in St. Pete saw 2 red flags. Obviously, the second of which meant the clock kept on running. Scott McLaughlin was one who really lost out in that session. He'd already caught debris on his car. I think he got a bag or something attached to it. And then I think the second red flag came when he was trying to get a clean run. So he kind of went 10 minutes just without getting any sort of clean run. I think, yeah, I mean, in theory, less cars should mean it's easier to get a clean lap, but just the amount of interferences that are possible, I don't know. I think it wasn't phenomenal. I think, again, credit for trying things, but small issues can actually be pretty major issues when you've got less time, and runs can just be completely ruined. I mean, I think Power said in the press conference that he liked it, but there was more room on track, there was less backing up, and he could get cleaner runs, but it definitely wasn't the same for each driver. And I applaud them for trying, but I think just leaving a session green and uninterrupted for an hour and a quarter as they usually do, I think is just probably better, as much as the track is a bit busier. I just felt it was a bit stagnated. Like, it was just all too staggered, really. I think 10-minute runs, and you got to stop again, go again, stop again, then cars come back out again, stop again, more cars come back out. It's just, it didn't look great from a fan perspective, and I don't think it really made much of a difference for the drivers either. In some cases, made for more problems and more serious problems.
Excellent. Let's quickly touch on Callum Ilott, as you mentioned earlier, he's going to be back this week for McLaren. David Maluka is still not fully fit. St. Petersburg, we obviously mentioned in the debrief, he didn't set the world alight, but he did a pretty respectful job for McLaren, so he's back for the thermal.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's now transpired that he's also doing the Barber test ahead of thermal, so that's now going to be the hybrid test under his belt, St. Pete weekend, Barber test, thermal test heading into the thermal race. So I feel like he's going to be much more prepared, much more integrated in the team. Yeah, decent St. Pete. I don't think you could have asked for much more than him, having only been in the car once prior to the weekend, and that wasn't even in 2024 spec. That was with the hybrid, obviously. So yeah, good to see him get another chance. I think it makes sense that they are not going to rush Malukas back. Just give him as long as he can to recover, and you would imagine, barring something going a bit wrong or the recovery having a setback, he will be back for Long Beach.
Yeah, like I said, I think he did kind of just what McLaren needed him. And I think just from McLaren's point of view, kind of having someone that they know what they're going to be like and how they're going to race, I think that's just good for them. They may not want to bring someone in just that like hasn't kind of gone through all the testing, and they just don't know how kind of they're going to not react, but how they're going to race. So I just think it's probably just best for McLaren.
I think I saw this online, but would McLaren be putting this much time and investment into Ilott if they didn't see him as a full-time option? I think the amount of testing they are giving him is quite notable. They're moving to the Andretti factory for 2025. They might have space for an extra car, and they're obviously looking at Callum Ilott quite seriously. Alexander Rossi's contract's up at the end of the year, so whether they see Ilott as a genuine option, it remains to be seen. But it's an interesting note to sort of follow with the amount of testing he's getting.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, we don't know exactly who's going to be free agents. I don't know whether Rinus VK might be a free agent, whether obviously Christian Lundgaard, he's in a contract year, that's been made clear. So there are going to be options out there, but I think it was quite significant. I still feel like the Sebring test, the fact that when Ilott was, because he was away doing the prologue, I think in Qatar and testing, or I don't know if it clashed with the WEC weekend, I can't quite remember, but Ilott wasn't available for that test. But rather than trialing someone else or putting someone else in the 6 car, they just decided to run O'Ward for 2 days, which does suggest that I think Ilott is almost one of their only options that they're really looking at. And I think, yeah, they are looking at him pretty intensely, I would say. And it does, yeah, I think there are possibly hints there that it could be something longer term, because he obviously needs to be back on the IndyCar grid, and it's clear how talented he is. And yeah, I think you were onto something.
One more bit of, should we call it mid-seasoning content? Lee Diffey is set to go into the NASCAR booth. I think it's after the Olympics. I will have to look how many races that is, but I think we worked out it is about 3 or 4 clashes of IndyCar. I think might be Gateway, Portland, Milwaukee, and Nashville. So that was maybe a slightly worrying point for IndyCar fans. We know the NBC contract is up at the end of the year. Remains to be seen whether they'll actually renew that or not, because we don't really know. Obviously, not too much has been said on it. But Diff's going to be in the NASCAR Cup booth. There are some clashes of IndyCar, so whether he's going to be at the track for IndyCar, we don't know. Maybe he commentates on NASCAR remotely, but I deem that probably unlikely. So maybe we won't see him at the end of the season. Could be a little bit of a fear.
Yeah, I don't think this is confirmed yet, but it was reported by the uber reliable Adam Stern from Sports Business Journal, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, obviously NASCAR run pretty much weekly, so there are inevitably going to be clashes, and there's nothing on his IndyCar future. There's nothing on the future of IndyCar's TV deal. Obviously, as you said, with NBC's deal running out at the end of the year, there's obviously been negotiations. I think Fox have been mentioned as a possible suitor, and I just reckon it will be hard for him to do both NASCAR and IndyCar. It depends on locations. They don't clash in terms of timings, but in terms of, Diff having to travel from 2 different tracks, especially if they're across the other side of the country, it's not a small country, then that is an issue. I fear that it's with a view to something longer term, if I'm being honest, and that would almost certainly kind of spell the end of his IndyCar coverage, you would imagine, and maybe more aptly I could say you would fear, because it would be a huge loss. He's a phenomenal commentator. He's a major asset to IndyCar and the coverage of IndyCar. There's a brilliant chemistry between him, James Hinchcliffe, Townsend Bell. And I just don't see... It feels like a really tough act to follow for any replacements, really. And the NBC coverage, spearheaded by Diff, really contributes to making IndyCar so great. And I think this does probably hint that there may be a move away from NBC with a new TV deal, unfortunately, which is sad because NBC have so many assets that make the coverage so great, whether it be the pit lane reporters, the likes of Kevin Lee, Marty Schneider, all of just everyone. The coverage is just great. So it would be a major loss, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Diff's very NBC rather than IndyCar. You know, he does the track and field, as we've mentioned. He's done the bobsleigh. he's done all sorts. So it would be a loss. Obviously, that isn't confirmed, and it was stated the plans for 2025 for NASCAR aren't known. So that's obviously something to bear in mind. I mean, I'm sure we'll get all the details, but obviously Kevin Lee's great, but you know, he's no Diff. So hopefully we still see him. That's yet to be confirmed. Obviously, we'll report it as of when we find out the news. But maybe some slightly concerning news for fans of Diff. But as I said, we'll find out. We'll analyse it a bit closer to the time because we won't delve into it too much because it's not confirmed. Right. So last week we introduced, or 2 weeks ago, I should say, the Fast 6 predictor tournament. There's no Fast 6. Do you want to have the predictor tournament, or do you just want to have a free for all this week?
Well, I was going to say predict the 12.
It's quite hard.
It was quite difficult without knowing the groups, which we could try.
I mean, we could try. I'm happy to give it a go. Are we counting that towards the predictor tournament?
No, it's a non-points round.
Yeah, it's a non-points race. It's fine.
It's an exhibition round.
It's money up for grabs. We get $5 instead of 500,000.
Yeah, we can let's predict a solid top 5, and then we can always predict the.
Let's work around it.
Let's do the full 12 for fun, and then should we do?
Let's go.
We could do the top 12 in order of what we think is going to finish the race.
Yeah.
Or, let's do that. That's a nice happy medium.
Who's going to finish 12th? Go through position by position.
The first edition of the Dive Bomb £5 challenge, non-exhibition round in the Fantasy Championships. We'll see what happens here. We're going to predict 12 to first in a never seen before Dive Bomb guessing format to try and work out who's going to win the $1 million, and more importantly, who's going to win the £5. So,
and this could go really badly because we have no idea who is in what group.
I've sort of just chucked names out there and hope they're going to get in.
So all 12 of these names could be in the same group, and it could be a disaster.
They could all just be out.
This is part of the fun of it. This is part of the fun of it.
Exactly. It's a never seen before format. You've got to guess before you know the outcome. So this is why the £5 challenge is so significant. P12. I've gone for Felix Rosenqvist.
I've gone for Tom Blomqvist, his teammate.
Pretty similar.
I went for Graham Rahal. I don't know. He stuck out.
There's no real theories in here, just vibes. P11. I went for McLaughlin.
I went with Ilott.
I went for Lundgaard.
P10. I've gone for Ericsson.
I've gone for Ilott.
I went for Lundgaard.
P9. I went for Rahal.
I went for Newgarden.
I went for Rucci.
I went Dixon 8th.
Ferrucci.
Kirkwood.
You two are very similar. I've went VK 7th.
I went Rosenqvist 7th.
I went with the same.
We've got identical lists here. Kirkwood 6th.
O'Ward 6th.
I went with Armstrong. So
I've gone O'Ward 5th.
I went for Pelot 5th.
I went with Herta.
I went Pelot 4th.
VK 4th.
Oh wow, that's good bowling, is it?
I went with Ross there.
Going on to the podium, I put Will Power 3rd.
I put Roman Grosjean 3rd.
Oh wow, you're really going for it.
I went for Ward.
Wait, Newgarden 2nd.
I've gone for Kirkwood 2nd.
I went with Pillow.
I've gone Herta to win the $1 million.
I've gone for McLaughlin to win the $1 million.
I went with Newgarden.
Or the 500k.
About to say we say the $1 million, but it's 500k. There we are. Your predictions for the Dive Bomb £5 at home challenge. Is that what our official branding is?
That's what it's called now.
So, let's just go. Who are our notable omissions from the top 12? Mine are Dixon, Herter, Rossi, and Power. I think am I kind of four.
I went pretty safe. I think. It's not really anyone. I guess I've only put 2 Ganassis in there. No.
Ericsson. I missed out Ericsson as well.
Yeah, I didn't really go anyone too brave apart from I think VK is probably my only bold one, but I don't know. It's hard to
I want
say,
to go
isn't it?
brave. I'm going off our theory that the top teams won't take it quite as seriously as the some of the smaller outfits.
Predictions locked in, signed off for the Dive Bomb £5 at home exhibition challenge. So find out the results next week of the winner of the £5. So those are our predictions for the event at the Thermal Club. Now, you make your own predictions, and this week there is a little incentive being run by Formula Model Shop, the sponsor of the DIVEBOMB IndyCar Podcast. Formula Model Shop are willing to give away a wheel-powered diecast. The winner will receive a 1-18 scale, and the winner will receive a 1-64 scale. Now, your challenge is you have to predict the top 3 of the Thermal Club event. So pick any top 3, preferably in an order, and we'll decide a winner on who's got the closest prediction. And the winner will get a Willpower 1-18 diecast model. This is only available for entrants in the UK and Europe. So if you're international, we do very much appreciate your love, but we cannot ship internationally, unfortunately. But as always, a huge thanks to Formula Model Shop, not only for offering this incentive, but sponsoring the DIVEBOMB IndyCar Podcast.
You can use the discount code 5BOMB, all one word, FIVEBOMB, to gain 5% off products on the FMS site. You can visit the Instagram highlights on the DIVEBOMB Motorsport Instagram for a link to an exclusive VIP section on the FMS store, courtesy of DIVEBOMB.
You can find the FMS site via a banner on the DIVEBOMB website by visiting formulamodelshop.co.uk.
Stay tuned for exclusive giveaways, events, and other content, and look out for the Instagram post for the giveaway.
Get your predictions in. I think we'll post it alongside the podcast, actually, I reckon, and we'll probably do another reminder. So it's non-championship, but prizes are still very much up for grabs, not only in the £5 at home challenge, the $1 million challenge, and the giveaway for you guys to win. So get your predictions in, lock them in, and 2 wheel-power diecasts available for grabs. So get your predictions in, share it with your friends, and, they might be nice enough to give it to you. We'll see. We'll put the full T's and C's in the Instagram post to have a look there and see what we can do. So that's it. That's our preview for the Thermal and our mid-seasoning sort of bits and bobs as well. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. We do ask one thing from you listeners this week. If you have listened, if you've got this far, we'd really appreciate if you could rate us on Spotify, give us 5 stars, and that will just push our content out to more people. We're a growing fan base. We want us all to grow. So if you can rate us 5 stars, we'd really appreciate it. We don't ask for much on this podcast, but the opportunity to give away, maybe that might incentivize you. So we'd really appreciate it if you could do that.
And like and subscribe on YouTube as well. We would also really appreciate that.
Next week, obviously, we'll be reviewing the Thermal Club. We've got no idea how it's going to go. As you said, it's going to be quite an exciting event. So keep your eye out, give it a watch. Hopefully, it's fun to get your friends to watch. You never know, it might bring them over to IndyCar in your fast-paced format. So let's all give it a go. Let's bring some friends along the way, and let's give it a watch. And obviously, we'll be back next week to review that. So thanks very much for watching. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.